We are 2 weeks away from the trade deadline, and there's really not a whole lot to report. So, what I did was I went around to a bunch of different sites and made sure they're legit. By legit, I mean they're not just blogs. It's not just, hey, I think, because that really doesn't do a whole lot for anybody, really. I am still intending to do a video on teams that, if they want to really change their identity, who they trade this year. But that doesn't mean I think any of them are going to move. Um, Jeff Skinner's been getting a lot of press lately as a potential trade target, and I'm not sure why. Yes, he's 5.75 million. Yes, he's only got 12, 13 goals this year. His totals are down off the 37 he had last year, and that 5.75 million for maybe it's 16 goals. I think it's 16. Either way, the idea is, well, he's only got a year left on his contract. He's going to want more money. I've always found this baffling. So a guy's getting paid a certain amount of money and he has a really good year. Then he's having a crap year and you say, oh, geez, he's going to want a raise next year. You sure? Because if Skinner's playing poorly, then he's probably not going to get a huge raise. It's sort of like with Toronto, where the fear was that it had cost too much money to keep Matthews, Marner, and Nylander together. True, by the way they played last year. By the way they've played this year, I think you can fit all three of them under the salary cap and still put a pretty decent team on the ice. I'm not overly concerned if I'm a Toronto fan right now. Um, and for Carolina, it's not like they don't have cap space. Skinner's a good player, and it's been a rough year for him. And trading because he's having a rough year, yeah, in the '80s you do that, but not now. Because he's going to go somewhere and regain his 30 goal form, and you're going to look stupid. And I think Carolina's got to look back to Hartford at the trade deadline with this guy Ron Francis they traded out. Didn't seem like it was a big deal at the time. In fact, they got back John Cullen, who looked like he was going to be, just pretty, not necessarily as good as Francis, but at least good enough that people wouldn't talk about it for 30 years. So I don't see Skinner moving. You guys can let me know what you think, though. Maroon, apparently Boston's tied to Patrick Maroon right now in trade rumors. I don't like it. Boston's playing a swarming fast game right now, and they really are in contention. And it's got me thinking maybe Boston will be a little more active during the trade deadline than I thought. But Patrick Maroon is not a guy they need. Edmonton's been held back this year in part because of speed. Before the season even started, there were reports of how slow the Oilers looked on the ice and how other scouts for other teams were surprised by how slow the Oilers were. Maroon's part of that. And trading him to Boston would completely change the way that the lineup works. Bruce Cassidy's had a very solid vision for this team right from the beginning of the season. He didn't deviate from it, even though they went through that crappy part in October. And I can't see Maroon in Boston. Not with the asking price being what it is for everybody, it seems. The Coyotes are going to be selling, but apparently they're also looking for centers while they're selling. So Dylan Strome is the only prospect they have that's considered a blue chip for centers, and they're kind of concerned about their lack of depth forwards in terms of prospects. That most of their prospects are seen as having a ceiling of probably being a bottom six forward. There's nothing wrong with that, but not having anybody with a ceiling of top six. Come on, John Chayka. You've got to figure this out quickly because things could get worse for Arizona. They actually could. Apparently, Brassard, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and grab a sip from my beverage. So Ottawa's going to trade Derick Brassard. Clearly, they have a mind that is still occupied with the Zibanejad deal. Because now, since they kind of got a little fleeced in that, they're trying to fleece other teams. Player, prospect, first round pick. That's the rumored price for Brassard. No. If I'm a GM and I'm calling about Derick Brassard and they say we want a first rounder, depending on where I am in the standings, I'm still on the phone. Prospect, I might still be on the phone. And a player, I'm hanging up. Brassard is a decent second/third line guy. And he might be good for depth for a run for one of these teams, but I just don't think he's worth three pieces. I don't. The Leafs are apparently not trading JVR. They're not accepting calls right now on James Van Riemsdyk, and there's no contract talks. So because JVR has already said he won't take a hometown discount to stay in Toronto, that he wants to get paid what he's worth, Toronto hasn't even called him. So basically, they're saying if you want to stay, you're going to take either the same price you're getting now or you're going to take less. And JVR would be crazy to take that. Now, that brings up an interesting point. Are we going to see teams doing what teams used to do? So you try to negotiate, it doesn't work. Trade deadline comes up, you got a choice. Hold on to that piece, hold on to that guy, and deal with it later, and try to go on a run in the playoffs, or sell him off when he's got value. See what you can get back. And I think we're starting to see teams deciding to hold on. I think the Islanders are going to hold on to the pieces that they have at the deadline, being Bailey, Tavares. I don't think there's any movement on that at all. And rumor has it that Josh Levo didn't ask Lou for a trade. Yeah. So we've been talking about Josh Levo, at least the press has been talking about Levo for a week. I mentioned it in one video. And now apparently he never asked the GM for a trade. So it's all sort of, whatever. It's this time of year, man. This is why I'm only doing one video a week on rumors and what's going on. Nash did give his 12-team list to the Rangers, and I haven't heard anything more about it. There's been nothing. And I think this is why. I'm going to go ahead and box this off. Player, prospect, first-round pick. That is the going price if you want anybody who's good. Not great. I could understand this for a Josh Bailey. I could understand this and a couple other pieces for a Tavares. But for the guys that are being rumored, you don't give that up. I think, one thing I read too is that what happened to Minnesota after the Martin Hanzal trade might have GM having some second thoughts. We all come out of the trade deadline. We look at a team that adds a big name player, and we go, you know what? They didn't lose anything off their roster to get him. That's a win. What a great move. But you're changing the chemistry of the team. It's like Maroon. Let's say Boston can get Maroon, and they trade Zboril, and they trade a first rounder and Sean Corrali. I'm just throwing names out there. They throw those three in, and everybody would look and say, wow, Boston did so well. They picked up Patrick Maroon, and they gave up very little off their roster. Then that first round pick becomes, I don't know, Veleno. Let's just say Veleno becomes that. I'm just throwing a name out there. Or becomes a player that 2 years from now, we're talking about how Boston really could have used that guy instead. Maroon didn't stick around. Took a raise to go somewhere else. Boston still didn't win the Cup. And Corrali's become a really useful player for the Oilers. Zboril is a really solid blue liner for the Oilers. It's too high of a risk to me. What teams are asking for, and I get it because here's the teams. So these are the teams that I think are going to be active trying to acquire a piece or two at the deadline to get themselves over the hump. Central, you got Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota, St. Louis. I don't have Nashville up here because I think Nashville, with the unretirement of Mike Fisher, I think they're pretty good. They might add somebody on the blue line, but I really don't see Nashville being active. Toronto and Boston, I think, are going to have a bit of an arms race with Tampa. I think they're all going to try to make sure that in any potential series between two of these teams that they're the better team. But Toronto, I don't think is going to have blockbusters. I think Bozak's going to go. I haven't heard his name anywhere, but I think Bozak's going to go. I think Pittsburgh, Washington, and Columbus will be active. Pittsburgh because they want 3 in a row, and right now they can taste it. Washington because they don't want to collapse again. And Columbus because they want to make the playoffs 2 years in a row, and they want to make that step forward. And they may look to add something. Columbus won't mortgage their future to do it, but they may look to do something right now. It's sort of like with Minnesota. Minnesota, to me, being a buyer has to do with the fact that Stahl's older. A lot of their core guys are older. Suter, for instance. Dubnyk is in his prime, but how many more years can he play like this? Minnesota might look to add, and they're going to be cautious because of what happened with Hanzal last year. They're going to be very, very cautious because of the Hanzal deal last year. And yet the Hanzal deal didn't make Arizona better right away either. So the sellers, I still have Vancouver, Chicago, Arizona, Buffalo, Edmonton, Florida. The Rangers because they've said they're sellers. Detroit, Ottawa, and Montreal. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rangers say screw it. If the Rangers can play over the next couple of weeks, um, let's say they go 4-2 in the next couple of weeks, then I think the Rangers are going to be off the board next Monday or that Monday. If the Rangers can get into a playoff spot, I can't see them trading their way out of it. And I know there's Rangers fans saying no, they have to, but you have to remember your playoff gates. So the amount of money you make off playoff games if you're an owner is substantial, millions of dollars per game. So you're going to an owner and saying, look, you can make an extra $6 or $7 million with 3 home dates in the playoffs, maybe more, if we get out of the first round. Or you can make nothing in the postseason, and we're going to trade off assets, and we might be worse next year, and we might not get back to the playoffs next year. An owner might say, no, I want those playoff home dates. And that's been rumored to be the problem with some teams. That ownership will say, well, we want to be in the playoffs, so no, you're not selling. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, before Jeff Gorton and Glenn Sather penned that letter to the fans, they would have had the okay from ownership to do so. But what's going to happen from here? So let me know what you guys think. I think the rumors are they're daily rumors, and yet nothing seems to change. So I'm just putting up the stuff that's kind of changed. I'm not talking about Evander Kane because nothing has changed. Nothing. Not even close. Nothing's happening that I know of. The rumors are rampant, but they all seem to come back to the same teams being in the mix for the same players. And it's reporters who are really trying to drum up how awesome the trade deadline is, and yet both TSN and the Sporting News have done articles in the last week about how the trade deadline might be dead because there's too many players seeking too much for too few players, and that GMs might think that it's too rich and keep out of it. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. We're going to hit 29,000 subscribers today, and I thank each and every one of you for every like, comment, and share that you've done with this channel because you're all helping to make this community grow. And we passed 8 million views this past week as well. I couldn't think of a video to do for 8 million views. And for 29,000. So here's what I'm hoping. We're going to get to 30,000 subscribers, I hope, soon. And when we do, I hope we hit 10 million views as well. And if I can do a video which is kind of both, that'd be a lot of fun. And I could do some fun kind of a retrospective on the channel and on the more popular videos and that kind of thing. But yeah, so that's in the pipeline once we reach 30. But for now, we're going to hit 29. And I'm very grateful to all you guys for helping me get there. And I'll talk to you again soon.